There's a glimmer in his eye, he can game twice as fly. Let's take a look in his notebook with the Reading Gamer. Reading Gamer. Hey, howdy, hey, I'm your host, Sensei-pong, and welcome to the first episode of Reading Gamer, a YouTube review and opinion show dedicated to interactive fictions, visual novels, and text adventures. Normally with the format of this show, I'd cover at least 2 games I thought were good enough to recommend or popular enough to review to help people open up to the wondrous world of these types of games. But today, I'll only be reviewing one title, and that's Depression Quest, available on Steam and online for free download and play. Now normally I wouldn't play a game that I know is bad or has gotten terrible reviews. One, it's a waste of money and time. The purpose of the show is to recommend titles that you may not have heard of, or critique titles that are popular on the market to give you my impression of whether it's justified for a purchase. I honestly want to get gamers, book readers, and people that enjoy problem-solving puzzles interested in these sort of games, since there's a great slew of titles available for pretty much anybody in every single genre of writing. So, at first thought on building the format of this show, Depression Quest was quite low on my list of options. There's scrutiny thrown at it and its creators, controversy involving Gamergate, etc., which I will not cover in detail for reasons that this show isn't meant for that type of discussion. I want people reading, spread literacy, and possibly get people playing some of these great games, both classic and new. Kind of like LeVar Burton, but for games. Which, I would hope you get the reference Reading Gamer. It's a play kind of parody on Reading Rainbow. If you don't know what Reading Rainbow is or too young to know what it is, go check it out. It's fun. Directed for younger kids, but it's fun. It's good stuff. But now the other 2 reasons why I'm reviewing Depression Quest is that if this show ever takes off with viewers, I'm sure I'll be asked to review it at some point. So I'm saving you the struggle and reviewing it as my first episode. I'll be coming at this game as an interactive fiction text adventure enthusiast myself, and not a gamer that wouldn't normally play these sort of games. Number 3, I'll be honest with you, it's clickbait, and I know people would actually be interested in what a hack like myself would think of it. So, there you go. Well, let's carry on with the review. Because of the seriousness of this topic involved with Depression Quest, I will not have my usual funny clips or pictures, as it doesn't feel ethical, and I'll give you just a straightforward review. Enough said. Also, I should probably squeeze this in. I'm a little worried about that the creators may be a little bit troll happy with copyright law and banning. So, yeah, all I'm going to show you is a still image of the cover. So, sorry about that. Anywho, on with the review. Now, I've played this a few times at this point, attempted to compare different endings, but as an interactive fiction visual novel, the cons outweigh the pros, unfortunately. I appreciate what this game attempts to do for the awareness of depression, but it fails to do so effectively. At first opening the game, the music tipped me off with the thought, oh hey, that's nice. It's kinda sad. This may help me get me in the mood, and let me understand what depression is for some. As I've dealt with depression in the past, and no, it's not fun. It's tiresome and depressing. No pun intended. But depression is a bit different from one person to another, so knowing how it was like for myself and other people I've been close to, I was curious about how this game would portray it. First and foremost, the writing is decent. Fortunately for the player, there aren't any serious flaws that derail the story completely. But there definitely could have been more elaboration on the characters' pasts or relationships with others. There's no real detail about the player's workplace or even their boss. Having the relationship explored more would have greatly helped the story, even if it was for just a short moment. Halfway through the game, I just stopped caring about the outcome, which is kinda weird for me since I've trudged through some pretty boring interactive fictions in the past, including those old school text adventures very few people would ever want to play, unless you're into that sort of thing like me. Now, technically, I found this game irritatingly lazy. There's no save function. I know this seems trivial, but even with the most homebrew of interactive fictions through platforms like Gargoyle or Infocom Reader, there's usually a save function. If you find yourself bored and wanting to carry on later, you can't. You have no other choice but to start from the beginning. Now, the quote-unquote branching story is misleading in the description on the Steam page. This game is marketed as an interactive fiction with decent options to change the ending, but in reality, no, there isn't. Most people aren't going to play this more than once to realize this, but there is only one ending. Sure, a couple of words and things may be switched around or replaced, but it's a lie. Sure, your quote-unquote stats may be a little bit better or worse in the end, but it doesn't change the context of the game greatly enough to be considered truly interactive. And yes, I understand the crossed out options are options that would be available if you weren't depressed, but since you're given so little options, the variance is negligible. Therefore, replay value is at an all-time low, and even though I didn't want to, I replayed this sucker more than I wanted to. I even went through the worst options available to me, singling me out to the most depressing options, no pun intended, to see if I would have a super terrible ending. It never came. Now, I'm going to go into a little territory that might be a little bit, but whatever. From personal experience with depression, I faced myself at the edge of a bridge considering suicide since I'm a terrible swimmer. The choice of suicide never came in this game. I know it sounds absolutely terrible, and I apologize to anybody that may be offended, but when you think the world is better off without you in it, you only drag the people around you down, that God has either forsaken you or isn't even there, or if you just killed yourself, the world wouldn't skip a beat, then yes, suicide, regardless of the stigma, is a viable option to somebody that is like horribly depressed, regardless of how terrible of a choice it may be. An option for this could have been suicide, then showing the aftermath of what it would do to the family and friends of the player. It wasn't there. Now, unfortunately, if the choice was made into the game, you never get well acquainted enough with your family or your girlfriend enough to actually care. They just seemed overall like paper thin in character. And sure, this detail may be thrown aside as a viewpoint of somebody that's depressed. I get that. But if you want to really grind at the reader's views and hearts, you need to connect with them to the characters and their feelings, including the supporting characters. This may seem pretty basic, but the supporting characters are just important as the main. And no matter how crappy this sounds, suicide could have opened up another heartbreaker endgame scenario in the fact that your new kitten that you just got would die of starvation because you killed yourself and nobody knew about it for, I don't know, let's throw out some arbitrary numbers, 4 to 5 days to a week at most. Also, back on this point of suicide option, having suicide as an option in the game could have allowed the game to explore the awareness of suicide and the seriousness of it. It could have reached out to people who may be struggling with self-destructive thoughts, or people that may know somebody that may be suicidal. There was so much potential that was never explored in actually helping people on a grander scale. And because of the lack of proper execution and controversy this game has accumulated, I feel as if the game either wanted to do something to help people and failed, or do something with a touchy social stigma for clickbait, which doesn't help the seriousness of depression for society, but actually hurt people either with it or misinform people who may be curious about learning about the issue. So yes, I found the game lazy in mechanic and programming, from the lack of options, lack of ending, and the lack of save function. I felt it just always ended with a sigh with no resolution, which is kind of funny, since the writers at the end of the game thank you for playing and state, quote unquote, there's no real end to depression, which may be true, but I just found lazy. It seemed like a cop-out. For a good story, there could still have been a resolution of what happened, even if it's, well, I don't know. Oh, nothing happened. You stayed depressed and went into a deeper spiral of darkness. Lost your job and found yourself homeless. Something as simple as that. Or, your girlfriend, Alex, wanted to help you, escorted you to go see a therapist. Or, your family admitted you to a psych ward because they realized your depression had gotten so bad you weren't able to function in day-to-day tasks. Or, your IM friend, Attic, realized you didn't go see the therapist when you guys had talked about it and attempted to get you help in person. And you denied, so he called a suicide helpline, or anything beyond the same thing nearly every time. And I tried this so many I went through every single option, and it seemed to me, regardless of what I did, even if I had, spoiler alert, if I had that heart-to-heart conversation with my girlfriend Alex, it didn't matter what I did, or how, close we got, or how much she seemed to understand the situation, she'd break up with you anyways. I felt like the world was against me. So no, no. No. Have a little variance. Have a little bit of realism there. Alright? That's all I'm saying. Now, the music was okay at first, and then it got annoying. and in the end it seemed to actually add to the boredom I found with this game. It definitely didn't help the more times I played through it. Luckily there's a mute function in the menu, so, or you can always just mute your computer audio. But I'll stop ragging, and here's the pros of the game. I appreciate what the game attempts to do. The pictures getting fuzzier, turning black and white was a nice touch. The music getting distorted, the more you got depressed, was kind of a nice touch too. I found no typos, which I know is so freaking basic, but I'm digging for good things here, and I know something that's commercialized on Steam shouldn't have typos, but it's still possible. I don't know, well, I won't even put out any AAA names there. But I may expect a couple typos from a homebrew game, but whatever. I don't know. Maybe this isn't that great of a pro. So, what's my final verdict about this game and the conclusion? Yeah, I'm self-promoting a different show on my channel, but this game should be Pong and forgotten. I appreciate the proclaimed goal of the game, but it fails to do it effectively. Also, since it's so poorly executed, as an interactive fiction enthusiast that has played both wacky and very serious games of this type, I believe it hurts the genre. People who have never played this type of game before may assume that games of this type are just this restrictive, unplayable, and boring. An interactive fiction can be very serious, but it needs to be handled carefully. It needs to be done by a writer who can actually pull it off. The creators should have play tested this before releasing it to such a large marketplace like Steam. I'm being forgiving in my rating because I did like some of the technical aspects of the game. The imagery and the distortion of the music was a cool idea, and the fact that it was compatible with a gamepad was kind of neat. Not really needed, but it was neat. But other than that, this game gets a 3.7 out of 10. Not worth your time unless you're really curious, or you're a die-hard interactive fiction novel gamer and wants a taste of everything at some point, despite whether or not you'll like it or not, which unfortunately for me, I fell under this category. Anywho, I hope you enjoyed this review. Like and subscribe for more content covering interactive fictions, visual novels, and text adventures. Sensei-pong signing out.